Shalom. This week we are reading the two Parshiot of Behar and Bechukotei, and we are concluding the book of Vayikra, Leviticus. So we begin in chapter 25 in the portion of Behar and read all the way to the end of Vayikra. And, the second portion, Bechukotei, it contains the notorious Tochacha, the admonition, series of punishments that describe in very detailed terms the fate that awaits the people of Israel if we live in a state of denial, if we try to somehow ignore the covenant that Hashem has made with us, and really talks about the ascending levels of difficulty and frustration that will befall the Jewish people should we turn our backs on the covenant. But the portion of Bechukotei begins with the beautiful blessings and the guarantees that God makes if we follow His commandments, if we live according to His Torah. And I'd like to focus really on the concept of the blessings. A lot's been said about the punishments, the admonition, the warning. It's a difficult part of the Torah. People discuss, has it come true, hasn't it come true? And the fact is, I don't really look at it as so much of a punishment as much as a natural phenomena, a natural reaction or cause and effect, really, the result of what it's like for the people of Israel to disassociate themselves from the Torah and from God, which is so much part of their lives, so much part of their essence. But to dwell briefly on the beginning of Parashat Behar-Bechukotei, beginning really in chapter 26 of the book of Leviticus with the third verse. So God tells us, Im bechukotei telechu v'et mitzvotai tishmeru. If you will follow my decrees and observe my commandments, then and perform them, then God says, then I will provide your rains in their time, and the land will give its produce, and the tree of the field will give its fruit. Very general, beautiful ideas that refer to a whole vision of what life could be. The verses continue. Talk about the natural state for the people of Israel to be in when they are connected to God. But this opening verse is the one that I really want to focus on for a moment. Chapter 26 and verse 3 tells us, if you will really, im bechukotei telechu, if you will go in my chukim, if you will not follow, but if you will walk in the ways of my decrees, and you will observe my commandments. Now the truth is, these words seem to be redundant, and we know that there's a major principle in understanding Torah, that every word, every expression is perfect. There's nothing that is in any way superfluous, and huge volumes and vast amounts of commentary of our sages and tradition and insight that comes directly from the oral Torah is taken up with the fact that every word in the Torah, since it's the living word of the living God, every word has to be accounted for and make sense. And the truth is, when you look at this verse, chapter 26 and verse 3, it really could have read, if you will observe my commandments. There's something extra that's being added here, and it's very elusive. If you're honest, you'll realize, Im bechukotei telechu, if you will go in my chukim, in my decrees, and if you will follow my commandments. What is the double language here? The whole concept of the blessings and the admonition, God forbid, the opposite, if we don't keep the commandments, is precisely that. It's about living for Hashem. It's about being attached to Him. It's about keeping the commandments. So what is the idea here? If you will follow my ways, if you will follow my decrees, if you will go in my decrees, and you will observe my commandments, what is being added here? There seem to be two different things that are expected of us. Are there two parts to the covenant? There's keeping the commandments. What is the idea of walking in His decrees? And so different commentaries talk about this, and they mention that there is something that is being added here. It has to do with amelut b'Torah. It has to do with being very diligent in Torah study, working very hard to understand the Torah. So I think especially because of the fact that chukim are being referred to, im bechukotei telechu, if you will, walk in the ways of my chukim. And we know that a chok is a type of commandment, a type of Torah principle that is beyond the level of human comprehension. And Hashem is really saying, if you will work hard to immerse yourself in the Torah, if you will toil diligently in the Torah, study, and if you'll also observe my commandments, that is what I expect from you, kind of like a twin responsibility of doing my commandments, but also of studying Torah. But the truth is, we can really go even deeper. Because then, when the admonition does begin, a little further on here in chapter 26, in verse 14, there's something really very profound that the Torah says. It seems very simple, but if we look at it, suddenly we can really be surprised. The Torah says, "Ve'im lo tishma'u li, ve'lo ta'asu et kol hamitzvot ha'ela." Now, what will happen if you will not listen to me and you will not perform all of these commandments? And then the Torah begins to enumerate the various stages in the admonition, the tochacha, stages of the series of punishments. What is this verse telling us? Again, if we were dealing with an author that was concerned with being economical and concerned that there shouldn't be any redundancy and that every word should be very, very sparse, we would expect the Torah to tell us, and now here's what's going to happen if you do not observe my commandments. But that isn't what the verse says. It says, if you don't listen to me and you don't observe my commandments, as if they're two different things, and that really seems very strange. I mean, if we're not observing the commandments, doesn't it mean that we're not listening to him? Apparently not. There's two different things that are being described here, two different levels. If you will not listen to me and you will not observe the commandments, and that means that it's possible to observe the commandments and still not listen. To observe the commandments and yet not be listening to what Hashem is really saying. It's not enough to observe the commandments. It's not enough even to live a life that would seem to be dedicated to Hashem, that would seem to be, occupied with keeping all of His commandments, performing everything that He wants. But, that can be done. That can be a person's lifestyle, but there could be something very drastically missing. It could be that you're not listening to Him in the commandment, that you're not listening to Him also outside the commandment, in everything that we're doing in our lives. It's not enough just to do. It's a question of listening. It's a question of hearing Him. It's a question of being on target, just as the Sidra Parashat Behar-Bechukotei begins. If you will walk in the ways of my chukim, and also you will observe my commandments. It's not enough to observe them. You also have to walk in the ways of my chukim. You have to be diligent in Torah, especially in the chukim, in the ways that are above your comprehension. Like, for example, the classic example of chok everybody knows is para aduma, the red heifer. That's something that we already know in advance, we'll never understand. So the Torah is really telling us, you have to observe my commandments, and you have to go, telechu, you have to go in the ways of my chukim, in all of those conditions and circumstances in the world, not only the chukim, but what the chukim represent, the fact that there's a God in the world and we don't always understand everything that He's doing. But He still expects us to be there for Him, just as He's there for us. So, if you will go in my way, even when it's beyond your comprehension what I'm doing, you will always be going in my ways, in the ways of my chukim, and endeavoring all the time, amelut b'Torah, of toiling diligently to understand as best as you can, and observe my commandments. That is the condition for my relationship with you. Just as a little further down, again, we read in verse 14, and if you don't listen to me and don't observe the commandments, it's not enough just to observe the commandments. It's about listening to the voice of Hashem in everything that we do, finding Him in everything, even when we don't understand. That's that higher level of being, an attachment that we're striving to be on, observing and listening and going in the ways, so that it's a whole holistic, comprehensive package of being with Hashem at every moment. That's how the blessings unfold. That's how we avoid the admonition. That's how we take our role in the world, our task, our destiny of being the people of Hashem, of bringing His light into the world, observing the commandments, going in His way, and listening to Him as well. And that's how we merit God's help to see every blessing unfold and to really live with Hashem at every moment.